This is Babis Anagnostopoulos, comforting his mother-in-law this week. Her daughter, his wife, murdered just a few weeks before. But now police say that he was the murderer who nearly concealed his crime. Caroline Crouch was born in Britain but brought up on this peaceful Greek island.
The quiet streets of Nera, an affluent suburb nestled northeast of Athens, a place where life felt contained, safe. May 11, 2021 began like any other morning here, peaceful and still. But inside one home, the dawn broke on something horrifying, a brutal invasion, a scene of unimaginable violence that would shatter that sense of safety, not just here, but across a nation. Reports came in of a young mother, just 19 years old, found dead, her husband, discovered bound and gagged nearby. Their infant child miraculously unharmed, lying close by, untouched by the terror that had unfolded. This was Caroline Crouch, full of life, barely an adult. And this was Babis Anagnostopoulos, her husband, a pilot, his world seemingly destroyed in an instant. The intruders, they were told, were ruthless. They didn't just take a life, they added an act of cold, senseless cruelty, killing the family dog, hanging it before they reached the couple upstairs. But sometimes, the greatest dangers aren't outside your door, sometimes they are hidden in plain sight. How often do we take what we see, what we're told, at face value? Trust the tears, the shock, the story of a survivor? How well can you truly know the people living next door, or even in your own home? This wasn't the random, violent act of strangers it appeared to be, because in this case, as investigators looked closer, piece by piece, they would discover a truth far more calculated, far more personal. For days, the community lived in fear. Who were these brutal attackers? Why this family, in this quiet corner of the world? The mystery was immediate, pressing. But the answers lay not in finding a fleeing enemy, but in looking back at the scene, and at the survivor, with new doubting eyes. As we look closer at this case, prepare to question everything you think you know about appearances. Stay with us as we uncover the layers of deception that hid a terrible crime. Welcome to Whistles of True Crime, where we unveil the darkest mysteries and the most chilling true crime tales. If you crave real-life crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, you are in the right place. Kindly subscribe to this channel now, and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss any of our new stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. Athens, Greece is a city of deep historical roots and modern energy, home to ancient wonders that stand as testaments to centuries past. As with any major urban center, crime is a reality here, though Athens is generally considered a safe place. Like other large cities, it faces challenges with various forms of crime. The tragic events of this story unfolded in Nera, an affluent suburb where residents felt secure. This fact underscores how crime, and tragedy, can appear even in places thought to be sheltered, making the unexpected nature of what occurred all the more impactful. Who was Caroline Crouch? She was born Caroline Louise Crouch in Athens on July 12, 2001. Her parents were David Crouch and Susan Della Cuesta. With British and Filipino heritage, her story would soon capture attention far beyond Greece. At the age of 8, Caroline moved with her family to the peaceful island of Alonissos. It was there, away from the city bustle, that she spent her younger years. She was by all accounts a young woman of significant potential. Academically, she was skilled, pursuing a degree in statistics at the University of Piraeus in Athens. Her talents extended far beyond her studies. From a young age, Caroline excelled in sports. She was swimming from the age of 3, became a qualified scuba diver, and showed impressive speed running in 10K races. She was described as bold and determined in her pursuits. Her abilities weren't limited to physical or academic challenges. Caroline possessed a remarkable gift for languages, fluent in Greek, French, and Tagalog, her mother's native tongue. Alongside perfect English, her interests were varied and deep-seated. She was active in scouting, practiced traditional Greek dancing, enjoyed kayaking, and found joy performing in plays at the local theater. Despite her many activities, she remained dedicated to learning, even taking a course in religious studies in her mid-teens. Her relationship with her family was close and supportive. They were a constant presence throughout her life and would later be instrumental in seeking justice for her. Caroline Crouch was building a future full of promise. Her life was filled with accomplishment, talent, and deep connections, was just beginning. That such a life, so bright and full of possibility, could be extinguished so brutally, seemed incomprehensible. It left everyone grappling with a profound sense of loss and asking, how could this happen? The other half of this story, as initially presented, was Babis Anagnostopoulos, a man in the depths of sorrow. A 33-year-old helicopter pilot and flight instructor, he appeared before the cameras, pleading for help, his grief seemingly profound and real, but his public face would prove to be very different from the reality lived behind closed doors. Their relationship began on the island of Athens in the spring of 2017. Caroline was just 15, Babis was 13 years her senior. They married in Portugal in 2019, on the surface, a young family building a life. But beneath that surface, a turbulent dynamic was at play. A crucial window into their private world came from Caroline herself, her diary entries. These pages painted a picture of a relationship she described as fiery and toxic. She wrote of frequent, intense arguments. At times these conflicts became physical. Caroline documented moments of hitting him, and his reaction, once breaking down a door during a fight. Despite the volatile nature of these interactions, her entries also expressed her deep love for Babis, alongside her internal struggle, grappling with the pain the relationship caused her while wrestling with the idea of leaving. Further insight came from Caroline's therapist, Eleni Milanopoula. According to the therapist, Caroline had been in therapy but stopped abruptly after 12 sessions. This break coincided with Caroline noticing Babis's frequent absences on Sundays, leading her to suspect he was being unfaithful. The therapist stated these suspicions arose at a key point, and Caroline became increasingly fearful of her husband. Caroline's lawyer also indicated that Babis was actively involved with a former relationship. The strain on their marriage was evident even during significant life events. In 2019, during her pregnancy, Caroline wrote about experiencing a difficult emotional period, yelling at and hitting Babis, expressing negative feelings about their unborn child, only to feel remorse later. Even after their daughter Lydia was born, the problems persisted. On July 3, 2020, when Lydia was just 1 month old, Caroline wrote simply, yet powerfully, in her diary about telling Babis she wanted to leave, expressing her deep unhappiness. This wasn't a sudden thought, but a feeling building over time. The therapist's assessment of their dynamic was stark, describing Babis's role as dominating, controlling, and manipulative, and the relationship overall as toxic. Given the turmoil and fear Caroline documented within her own home, given the therapist's clear description of control and manipulation, could the official story of a random home invasion truly be the whole picture? The marriage, behind its public facade, was crumbling, marked by discord, control, and a young woman's growing fear and unhappiness. Could this troubled relationship, hidden from the world, have been the fuse leading to something far more tragic, far more personal, than a robbery gone wrong? Return to the Glyka Nera home, in the early hours of May 11, 2021. According to the account Babis Anagnostopoulos first gave to the police, the night of terror began around 4:30 a.m. He claimed 3 hooded and armed robbers forced their way into the house through a basement window. He described their movements, first, an act of cold brutality designed, it seemed, to instill fear and control, the killing of the family dog, hanged near the stairs. Then, the intruders made their way to the loft bedroom where he and Caroline slept with their baby daughter. They demanded money, Babis stated, and he told them about €10,000 cash in the house. He claimed Caroline, upon seeing a gun pointed towards their infant daughter, fought back, a moment of alleged bravery in the face of terror. It was then, Babis told investigators, that the supposed leader of the robbers immobilized Caroline and suffocated her. Before leaving, they tied and gagged him, and he eventually lost consciousness. When police officers arrived in response to his call, this was largely the scene they found. Caroline deceased on the bed, their infant daughter, Lydia, nearby, unharmed. The house seemingly ransacked. It appeared to be a horrific home invasion, just as Babis described. But the scene wasn't just found this way. Babis allegedly went to great lengths to make his story convincing. His included placing their baby, Lydia, next to Caroline's body, staging an emotional scene intended to convey the brutality of the intruders and the helplessness of the victims. The cruel killing of the family dog was also allegedly part of this elaborate act, designed to lend horrifying credibility to the robbery narrative. And another detail, Babis claimed the intruders removed the memory card from the surveillance camera on the ground floor before they fled. An explanation for why there would be no footage of the break-in or the perpetrators. The level of detail in Babis's initial story, the careful arrangement of the scene, it all suggested not just a survivor's account, but a deliberate performance designed to mislead anyone looking for the truth. The scene was horrific, a tragedy beyond words. But as experienced investigators began their careful work, small, unsettling details started to emerge. The picture Babis painted was vivid, full of terrifying specifics, but was it real? Or was it the first layer of a meticulously planned deception? Let me know in the comments below, because the next chapter will reveal the hidden truth. The investigation into the murder of Caroline Crouch was immediately assigned to the Crimes Against Life Department of the Hellenic Police, recognizing the gravity of the crime as initially reported, a brutal home invasion. The Greek government offered a substantial reward of €300,000 for information leading to the capture of the alleged robbers. In the initial days, police followed leads. A man was arrested near the border, but despite early suspicions, no evidence linked him to the murder. But as investigators worked the scene in Glyka Nera, they began to find things that didn't fit with Babis's detailed account. There were no signs of forced entry at the basement window he claimed the robbers used, no fingerprints or DNA from unknown individuals were found inside the house, security camera footage from neighboring properties showed no trace of an escaped vehicle or anyone fleeing the scene in the crucial hours after the alleged break-in. The turning point came not from witness statements or physical clues left by intruders, but from the quiet, undeniable records left behind by technology. The investigation turned towards digital evidence extracted from the devices inside the home. They analyzed data from both Caroline's and Babis's mobile phones, Caroline's biometric smartwatch she wore to track her activity, and the home's security camera system. These devices held objective records of what happened that night, and they told a story that directly contradicted the one Babis had been telling. The security camera's memory card had indeed been removed, just as Babis claimed, but the data revealed it was removed much earlier than the alleged 4:30 a.m. entry, at 1:20 a.m. A difference of hours. Why remove the card so early if the crime happened later? Even more compelling was the data from Caroline's biometric smartwatch. This device, tracking her vital signs, showed that her heart stopped beating at precisely 4:11 a.m. Coroner testimony aligned with this, suggesting Caroline's death process began between 4:05 and 4:11 a.m., and that she was likely asleep just minutes before. This timeline made Babis's account of her fighting off intruders at 4:30 a.m. impossible. Then, the data from Babis's own phone delivered further blows to his story. Applications on his phone were running during the time he claimed to be bound and gagged, indicating he was actively using it. The step counter on his phone recorded movement within the house when he said he was immobile. Faced with these undeniable inconsistencies, the weight of this objective digital record, police knew the man they needed to question further wasn't an unknown intruder, it was the grieving husband. On June 17, 2021, 37 days after Caroline's death, Babis Anagnostopoulos was brought in for questioning. The timing was stark. He was escorted by police after attending a memorial service for Caroline on Alanisos, presenting one face to the world, while the evidence showed another. The cold, hard facts from the digital world had methodically exposed every flaw in his narrative. The truth, recorded by devices, had cornered the grieving widower. There was nowhere left for his carefully constructed lies to hide. What would happen when he finally had to face the irrefutable evidence, and reveal what truly happened in that house? Are you surprised that this device could reveal the hidden truth? Let us know what you think in the comments below, because there is more. It was June 17, 2021, 37 days after Caroline Crouch died. For over a month, Babis Anagnostopoulos had played the part of the devastated widower, making public appeals, embracing his wife's grieving mother. But confronted with the undeniable facts from the digital evidence, the performance could not continue. In that interrogation room, the mask came off. Babis Anagnostopoulos confessed. He admitted that the home invasion was a lie. He admitted that he, Babis Anagnostopoulos, had killed his wife, Caroline. In his confession, Babis claimed the killing occurred during frequent frictions and a heated argument. He stated his reason for fabricating the elaborate robbery story was to protect their 11-month-old daughter, Lydia, from growing up without either parent, a justification for the lie, not the act itself. He attempted to portray the murder as a spontaneous act. He claimed it wasn't planned, stating he acted in a fit of rage after Caroline threatened to leave him and take their daughter. But his claim of a rage-fueled, unplanned act stood in stark contrast to the evidence detectives had painstakingly gathered. The smartwatch data showed Caroline was likely asleep when her life ended. The meticulous staging of the crime scene, the killed dog, the placement of the baby, the timing of the camera card removal hours earlier, painted a picture of careful planning, not impulsive rage. The prosecution would argue that Babis acted in a calm and calculated state, intentionally suffocating Caroline while she slept, and then coldly constructing the scene to look like a robbery. His confession, while admitting the killing, seemed an attempt to minimize his culpability in the face of irrefutable evidence. The next day, June 18, Babis Anagnostopoulos was formally charged. Not just with murder, but with other acts tied to his deception and the horrifying events of that night. He faced felony charges for murder committed in a calm state, and for animal abuse in the killing of their dog. He was also charged with misdemeanors for providing false testimony to the authorities and filing a false police report about the supposed robbery. His admission confirmed the truth behind the mask of grief, but his version of events still conflicted with the cold, hard facts of the staging and the timeline. It suggested a mind still attempting to control the narrative, even in confession. The confession sent shockwaves across Greece and beyond. What are your thoughts on Babis's claimed motive versus the compelling evidence of planning and staging? Share your perspective respectfully in the comments below. And if you are finding this story as gripping as it is tragic, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to Whistles of True Crime for more investigations into real stories that reveal hidden truths.
He was the murderer who nearly concealed his crime. Caroline Crouch was born in Britain but brought up on this peaceful Greek island. Her memorial service was held on Thursday, and that is when Anagnostopoulos was detained by police and told that they had fresh evidence against him.
He asked what's going on, and his reaction is kind of strange and awkward. He told them that the memorial isn't over and asked the officers to let him attend the memorial until the end. They refused to let him and told him for his own good to hide his cell phone and not call anyone, and that they have to leave immediately.
Caroline's murder in May shocked Greece. Her husband describing a violent gang who he said had tied up the parents, threatened their baby child and then killed his wife. In the days after, Anagnostopoulos cut a bereaved and broken figure. But police now say that the story about a gang was all a lie, that the husband murdered his wife because she threatened to leave him, and that he then staged the crime scene. It's claimed that data from wearable fitness trackers showed that Caroline died hours earlier than her husband said, and also that Anagnostopoulos was walking around the house when he claimed to have been tied up.
The examination of some evidence, and especially the digital evidence that we'd confiscated from the site, gave us some clues, especially the evidence that showed movement of objects, in particular the husband's phone, during the same time he had testified that he was tied up.
For weeks, Greece has been shocked by the spectre of a violent, murderous gang. If the police are right, then this horrendous crime instead comes down to the fury of just one man.
The public reeled from the depth of the betrayal. The grieving widower was exposed as a killer and a deceiver. Now, the legal battle would begin. What punishment awaited Babis Anagnostopoulos for taking Caroline's life and weaving such a cruel web of lies? With Babis Anagnostopoulos' confession and the undeniable digital evidence, the case moved towards the courtroom. The trial commenced, presenting the evidence and arguments before the joint jury. On May 16, 2022, almost exactly a year after Caroline's death, the verdict was delivered. The jury's decision was unanimous. Babis Anagnostopoulos was found guilty on all counts. This included the charge of murder committed in a calm state of mind, a clear rejection of his claim that it was a crime of rage. He was also found guilty of killing the family dog, false reporting to the authorities, and providing false testimony. For the murder of Caroline Crouch, Babis Anagnostopoulos was sentenced to life imprisonment. For the killing of their companion animal, he received a sentence of 10 years in prison and was ordered to pay a fine. For misleading the authorities through his false statements and staged crime scene, he received an additional sentence of 11 years and 6 months of imprisonment. Following the verdict, Babis Anagnostopoulos filed an appeal, seeking to challenge the court's decision. However, on September 29, 2023, the Mixed Court of Appeal in Athens unanimously upheld the initial trial's verdict. His life sentence, along with the additional prison terms and the fine, were reaffirmed. In the aftermath of this tragedy, a deeply sensitive matter was the custody of Caroline and Babis's young daughter, Lydia. After legal proceedings, custody was ultimately granted to Caroline's family. Lydia later moved to Manila in the Philippines, where she is being raised with her cousins, surrounded by her mother's side of the family who cherish her memory. The unanimous guilty verdict and the severe sentences imposed on Babis Anagnostopoulos underscored the gravity of his actions and the court's clear rejection of his attempts to deceive the justice system and minimize his guilt. Justice for Caroline was delivered, validating the evidence that exposed the truth behind the facade. The case of Caroline Crouch began with the terrifying report of a brutal home invasion, a crime that seemed to strike from the shadows. But the truth, slowly and meticulously uncovered, revealed a devastating betrayal, a crime committed by the person closest to her, hidden behind a mask of grief. We lost Caroline, a young woman with so much life ahead, so many talents and passions. This story is a stark reminder of the chilling reality of deception and manipulation that can exist in the most unexpected places, even within the home. The investigation showed the power of modern forensics. The digital evidence, from a smartwatch to a security camera, became objective witnesses that no lie could silence, playing a crucial role in bringing the truth to light and securing justice. The history of discord and control in Caroline and Babis's relationship, documented in her own words and by her therapist, offers a painful context for how such a tragedy could potentially unfold. The intense public interest and media coverage reflected how deeply this crime resonated, underscoring a collective sense of shock and the demand for justice for Caroline. The final verdict and sentences bring legal closure, but the human cost remains. From the darkness of this case, we can draw important, perhaps life-saving, lessons. This story teaches us the critical importance of recognizing controlling or manipulative behavior in relationships, and understanding that danger doesn't always come from strangers, sometimes it's hidden in plain sight. It highlights the value of trusting your instincts, those feelings of fear or suspicion Caroline documented. And it shows us that the truth, however deeply buried under lies, often finds a way to surface. Caroline's life, so full of light, was tragically cut short. Her story is a heartbreaking reminder of the life lost and the enduring impact on her family, particularly her daughter Lydia, who will grow up knowing her mother through stories and memories, forever marked by this devastating crime. Go back and listen again to the details about that camera's memory card being removed. It tells you just how early his horrifying plan began to unfold. Seriously, it completely changes the timeline of his lie. This story is a stark reminder. What lessons did you take away from Caroline's tragic case? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. Our hearts go out to Caroline Crouch's family and friends during this incredibly difficult time. We are deeply saddened by the loss of such a promising young woman and hope you find strength and comfort in the memories you shared with her. Her light will not be forgotten. Thank you for watching. If you crave to see more stories like this, where ordinary lives are shattered by extraordinary events, kindly do well to subscribe this channel, turn on the notification bell, so that you be the first to know when we drop our next video. More answers waiting to be discovered. Stay informed, stay vigilant and above all, stay safe. See you on our next video.